I just want you to know, I get it, Sturgia mains. Something about these shields, axes, and all this snow hits you right in the bones, and you gotta go Viking. And that's what I've been doing too. And I've been having a damn good time. You gotta have mad respect for these Sturgia boys. I actually think, at the highest level, they're one of the toughest and most badass armies out there. And I think they have such a unique play style. It just makes them so much fun. They're so much different than all the other, Empire and Valandia and Azerai factions where you got your infantry archers and stuff, and then you got your Khazate where you got your horse archers, Britannia with your Fians. Here, you got your shield wall, and I like to go ahead and throw in the Cav too, but we'll get more into that. But I just want to say to my Sturgia mains out there, I get it, okay? This is absolutely incredible. You'll see that I just have my guys in line formation out here. I could put them in shield wall, and this is typically a situation where I like to use shield wall when the enemy's up on elevation, or if I'm up on elevation and they're kind of shooting into my legs. However, in this case, you'll see that it's snowing. Number one rule when it comes to any Sturgia campaign, especially when it comes to fighting with Sturgia, make sure you fight in the snow. Remember that on wet or snowy grounds, mounted move speed bonuses are dramatically reduced. Also, siege preparation time is doubled, which is kind of nice because it buys you some time to put an army together and respond to threats, which are sometimes on opposite parts of the map. Saving the best for last, if it's actively raining or snowing, that weather condition reduces the speed of arrows and bolts, resulting in reduced damage and accuracy. This is when you want to fight those giant Khazate armies, also those Valandians with the crossbows and stuff. This is a fantastic reduction in the damage that ranged units do. And when you combine that with the fact that you got an army full of guys with big-ass round shields, it pretty much takes them out of the game. So if you don't learn anything else from this guide, remember, if you're playing Sturgia, try to fight in the snow. Now I just gave the order for the fun sticks. Now, you can mix your Sturgian armies with both heavy axemen and heavy spearmen, but I prefer the axemen, and now you're about to see why. Here come the fun sticks. Yeah! Come on. Everybody's getting some love. Look at that. You can rest assured that your Sturgian heavy axemen are going to mulch whatever's in there. Here we are at round 2. And like I said, you just don't need to form a shield wall when it's snowing. But if you're going to advance up the mountainside, then shield wall can be really nice. And who it's especially nice for are these big guys back here without shields that, can tuck in. And then when I get close, I reform into line to spread them out. If you go attacking shield wall, sometimes your infantry will get flanked because they're in such a tight formation. And the enemy's in a loose one that your flanks will get surrounded and you'll start getting attacked from behind. So spread them out a little before you collide lines, in my opinion. Now, ideally, I would have been moving my cavalry while my infantry was advancing. They would have already been moving around. But I'm just trying to show you guys how I like to do it. Let me just reinforce to you. Look at how slow this Valandian cavalry is moving in the snow. Always remember, party in the snow. And let us start at the beginning with a young Boloff, leader of the Oklahoma clan no one's even heard of, because we've got one of one membership right now. And we're just going to take this big guy to the top, and you can already see you're going to be jealous of his hair. Straight into Varcheg, and what do we see? A Royal Destrier. Oh, man. Level 1 tournament? I don't know. I'm not so good at these. That would be one hell of a start, especially with the prices on those horses at the beginning of the game. I don't want any shit about hitting horses. I gotta win, okay? Can you imagine this start if I win this? I'll fill a whole goddamn tannery up with horses for this win. Round 2, fight. Oh, this is the throw one. You know what I'm gonna do if I pick that up? Shit, I gotta get to throwing. Oh shit, I didn't enable HUD. I don't need HUD. Who needs HUD when you're a real Sturgian doesn't need HUD? Don't act like you're not impressed. Don't act like you're not impressed, because you are. Round 3. Hey, why don't you just hit her with that? Oh, shit. Look, she can swing that. Oh, man, she's a mover. Old Simir. Stab. Let's get that pierce attack. Oh, beautiful. Woo, big guy up. Keep pumping him. There you go. Good job, fella. Dude, if I get this guy's hit me and this guy in the finals. This is what always makes a Bannerlord campaign replayable, you know? Just these little events that can happen at the start of a campaign. Something just breaks your way. You get an awesome piece of loot or anything, and now you're on cruise control. Oh, okay. We're throwing the axes again. Oh, a little too high. Oh, shit. That's not good at all. But you know what? Neither is that big guy. There it is. Look at that, folks. His first tournament. That name's going to be spreading now. Can I be honest with you? I kind of want to keep it. Can I say that? I do. I kind of want to keep it. It could be a long time before I run into another one. Riding skill levels very quickly, and it would level insanely fast once I got on that thing. Boy, though, that 16 grand start going to buy me all the mounted infantry I need to get flying around the map and get up to Clan Tier 2, get that Merc contract, and be on my way. So maybe you got to sell it. I don't know. What do you guys think? Decisions. And look here. It's young Bolov's first Bannerlord battle. And I can tell you what we know from that tournament win is that we are going to be favored by the gods. Now remember these Sturgian Otrok. This is the beginning of the noble line that eventually turns into the Druzenic champions that we looked at earlier. But these guys start with a shield, so they're a real good recruit. A little more expensive, but we're kind of on an all expenses paid start now. Now, if you just come out here and charge with your guys, you can string them out a little bit. And that helps your guys kind of get a little tactical advantage. Just some numerical superiority where it matters. We're probably going to take a lot of casualties, and you're going to take a ton of casualties if you're doing that all infantry start that I always do on Sturgia. I'm pretty much all infantry until later on. I don't start upgrading to horses until I start looting them. And you just keep busting up bandits until you got yourself a little war band. Right? And now you're Clan Tier 2. You get on that Merc contract. And what I like to start doing from here on out is just raiding villages. I love to be just a little raiding party. There's a lot of advantages to raiding, especially in the early game. Number one, you're going to have a few high-level troops pretty quick from leveling up already, but your number of troops that you're going to get is going to start rapidly increasing between your steward upgrading, your clan tier increasing. So you're going to have this constant influx of new recruits you need to get leveled up. These village battles against villagers are perfect for leveling up troops because they're not going to cause a lot of casualties and you're going to get a ton of experience. Just remember on these Battanian villages, they spawn in those archers and they can actually be a pain in the ass on this low-level infantry you have. Their shields aren't quite as big and they can be a lot more vulnerable to fire. So if you get on the backside of a slope like this, it's going to force the archers to come up to the ledge to shoot you, and once they're there, you can charge them in. So that's kind of a nice tactic when you don't have that big shield wall yet. You're still got a bunch of recruits and level 2 and 3 soldiers. This is a good way to kind of bait the archers in. You just want to turn every battle you can into a big pile of dudes. We want to get up close and personal where we can wreck with axes and shields. But you can see here my infantry got flanked. So I'm actually going to take some pretty nasty casualties here. And see, one of the things you might need to do is have them hold fire, because sometimes they'll sit back and throw axes instead of be helpful. And they'll keep trying to throw axes and get an angle where they can throw axes. So just have them hold fire so that they'll engage if you want. That's what I always do. Before I rush them in, I just have them hold fire. Another great thing about this loot is that even though it's low level, these low level tools and weapons, these are very good for leveling up your smithing because they give you a bunch of low level materials, which you need to craft a bunch of low level weapons so that you can rank up your smithing, so that you can craft higher level ones. Get a ton of XP from those fights. So your guys are going to level up very quickly. Now, what you got to be careful of is that you're still a very small party. And remember, you're not that leveled up. And let me tell you something. A small, low-level, all-infantry army is about the shittiest army in this game. And you can die to a lot. And my Sturgia playthroughs are actually the playthroughs that I consistently lose battles the most and get captured, and then you got to rebuild. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. I don't even want to talk about it, but it happens the most when I'm doing infantry only because it's very easy to bite off more than you can chew, and things can go bad quickly. And the infantry don't tend to really overperform until they kind of do. And then the in-game Sturgian army, where you have a huge mass of Sturgian infantry on top of the cavalry, is incredible. But until you get there. And so sometimes you just have to play a little cat and mouse, trying to get in and raid. Just be careful. Make sure you got a scout and that you've got all your perks and everything so that you're safe. And this is what I do. I just keep running around and hitting these villages. Sometimes you get to do the battle and you can raid a little bit. Very rarely can you stay there for the entire duration, especially when you only have 44 troops. You really can't take on much. So you kind of just got to hit and run. But you're getting everything you need. You're leveling up. Another thing you can do is just fall back to your clan lands and play defensive, clean out the bandits. That's a great way to keep leveling up your army, of course. And then you got these parties that show up in the back line. Sometimes another Sturgian party will show up, and together you guys can stomp on. And that way you can get some really nice loot early. On top of, you get a little bump to your merc contract for a little bit. So that can be another way to do it. And, just go back and forth. If the AI is being super defensive and you really can't get any raiding done because you're just too small, then just play defensive, play it slow, and then just keep leveling up bandits and targets of opportunity. And you just keep doing that over and over, and eventually you're going to level up. Here we are now at Clan Tier 3. And once I have about 100 plus troops, this is when I like to really go Viking. You can see right here, I am now starting to incorporate some cavalry into my army, but not much. Just me, my wife, and a few other guys. I've got a stack of these guys waiting for war horses, and as I loot them, I just level them up. I just do it that way, make them earn their horse, you know what I mean? And this is where I like to start taking my party deep into enemy territory and just going scorched earth and hitting all those fat villages that aren't used to getting raided, and they're plump and just full of loot. The best thing about raiding, though, is that for an all-infantry army, villages are the best battlefields in the game. And so what we'll do is we'll button the boys up, and that's going to force all of that shit to come right around these corners, and then we're going to unleash the beast here, and all these axemen are going to get to work, and this is what you want to turn battles into. While we're waiting for the AI to arrive, let's take a moment and talk about my awesome polearm. The reason you always want to craft your own personal polearm is so that you can put this trait on it, which is thrust attacks can dismount riders. A lot of times you're just going to one-shot people with it, but even if you don't, you have an opportunity just to knock them off their mount. Oftentimes you're able to hit guys with it that are stopped up in your shield wall. So getting knocked off their horse and down into the shield wall is usually the end of them. It's a crazy powerful ability. No matter what playthrough you're doing, if you're fighting with a polearm, you should make sure it has the chance to dismount as a trait. And without further ado, it's showtime. And this is where I'm going to show you this awesome polearm. See how it knocked him off his horse? That's that knockdown that you can only get from the crafted polearm. Make sure you craft a polearm. And I got to tell you, see this Druzinic lance that's shorter? It's like Achilles' spear, this thing. It's unbelievable how awesome it is. So now we're going to bring our horses in too. And just leave them buttoned up for a few, all right? Just leave them, let them get in here nice and tight. And then just unleash them. Just keep fighting and keep raiding, and it won't be long before you got yourself a decked out little war band. You can see we've got a whole shit ton of fully decked out axemen. And over there, the cavalry unit's starting to get bigger. And those guys really tear it up. And here again, we're fighting in the snow, and these Valandia boys are coming at us. And this is how I like to build my Sturgia parties. It's how I like to build my Sturgia armies. Okay, grab a shield, get your axes out, and let's go. And we're just going to head right at them. Another example here, I could form up shield wall, but I don't need to. It's snowing. Okay, the bolts aren't going to hit that hard. The shields are going to catch most of them, and it's just going to slow me down. What I like to do is just get in there, and then we're going to start throwing our range shit too. Sturgia is not a ranged faction. Isn't that what you guys like to say? Please. So while our guys are softening them up with the axes, right? Just let them throw them. Get them where they kind of push them back. They're going to send their cavalry in. I hope I can... You know what? Let's just send our cavalry in. And let's just get our guys going in too. Again, I like to have my guys hold fire so that they all go in together. If you leave fire on, the guys that have axes left will hang back, kind of send the first wave in, and your troops can get more messed up. I like them to go in all together and just create that Sturgia man grinder. Look at that. They're just mulching them. Once you send your Sturgian heavy axemen in, they are going to mulch whatever's in front of them, okay? You win the battle at that point. But I see these people all the time on their playthroughs and stuff sitting in shield wall formation until the enemy's out of arrows. You don't need to do that shit, okay? Just remember that you're a damn man and get in there and start tearing shit up. And this is how I love to play my Sturgian armies. Like a bear that just mauls you. Just keep all that up and it won't be long before fame and fortune is yours. Then you get recruited to be a noble of Sturgia, which I did. I grabbed a wife, and I got to tell you, this one has been a dream, fellas. Look at my girl here, knocking out the boys left and right, and she's just pumping them out. My Ragna, she is just such a dream, and she's a badass on this mount. Oh, God, she tears it up. And I made her one of those special pole arms, too, so she can dismount with hers. The Sturgian wives just always shell out the airs for me. I don't know what that's about. Two things I want to point out to you at this point in the campaign are that my personal army size is still around 144, but I've added my own parties now so that these guys can bring more troops to, and I can create my own personal big-ass army. Remember, your own personal armies don't cost you any influence to summon, so bring them on in. And my favorite thing about adding all the Druzenic champions to your Sturgian army and just having a nice company of cavalry helping your infantry out is because they trivialize one of your infantry's greatest weaknesses, which is the horse archers. And here comes those Gazette horse archers, such a pain in the ass. And what we're going to do is we're just going to run our cavalry right the hell at them. And this is how I like to fight the Gazette, and this is the tactical advantage that having these cavalry units included can really give you, is they give you the option to just go right at them. And this is how I like to do it. Just send them the hell in there and let them get to just chomping these Gazette down, because I don't want to play into their hands where they're running around and shooting all their arrows while I'm in a shield wall formation. That all infantry army has some real weaknesses, but now you'll see these Druzenic champions. See how they just bottle them up? It's not about charging around or running around. They just smash into them, bottle them all up, and they serve them up those axes and lances, and these big-ass shields are helping stop all these glaives, and we're just working our way through them. Just guy after guy getting dropped. You'll see now that my army size got a lot bigger, but we're still going to apply the same strategy. Move in the infantry, throw the axes, go ahead and just charge the cavalry in over there on the left flank. Some of them are going to go ahead and go in there, get them turning around. Just stay on them, stay close in range, but don't close all the way in range. Let the axes do some work, especially with these guys turning around to take some shots at your cav. Here comes the enemy cav. And this is the first part of the battle, so all the most heavily armored shit's going to be right here. So these are big kills. These are the ones that matter. There goes the archers, and this is where it can get kind of ugly, is those archers can set up on that hill and really start shooting down into your infantry. And if you have an all-infantry army, there's not necessarily a good way to respond to that, unless, of course, you keep one group back. I mean, you can do it that way and then flank them around. But it's a hell of a lot easier just to have some cavalry take care of it. And there you can see. And now these cavalry here, this is where you got your badass lance. You can come in and help the boys out. Just knock them off. You don't have to be a champion. Put some damage on them or knock them off. That's all you got to do. Don't be afraid to reform the line, because you'll see that they're spreading out all those crossbows, guys, and you really just want to get in there and get to them before they start shooting, because all those crossbows start shooting, it becomes a real problem. Now you'll see I'm just going to stick with the spear. I could bust out the two-hander and it would put up some really impressive numbers, but this is a lot of crossbows and this is a lot of Manavlians out here swinging those pole arms around. So I think it's safer just to use the polearm for now. I usually don't bust out the two-hander until it's just straight harvesting time. I like to stay with the polearm because I find just taking out the cataphracts and just crashing through the archers, keeping them from pulling up and shooting, is really probably about the most use you can provide as one guy. And it just, your army's just going to chew through whatever's in front of them. Look at them. I mean, they're just chewing this shit up. And in these big battles like this, I tend to hang on to my lance till pretty late in the battle, because you'll see they just keep spawning in. A bunch of range, a bunch of cav here just spawned in. So you're going to have to keep taking them out over and over. And then at the very end, when it's all cleared out, is when I tend to bust out the two-hander. But you know, every once in a while, you just got to wade into it and tear it up. That's fun too. So just a lot of different options. So you can play battles different. If you want to level up your athletics or your one-handed, you can always get on foot and just fight the shield wall. That can be fun at times. So you've got some real ways to play and keep it fresh, keep it fun throughout the playthrough. And then here at the end, this is when you bring out the Great Harvester and just get to it. Doesn't take too long to level your two-handed. And can we just talk about the magic that is two-handed axe from horseback? Is there anything better? I don't think so. It's pretty incredible. You did good, boys. Proud of you. One thing I always like to tell people to be aware of, if you've got a heavy axeman army and you've got some big heavy axes, one thing that you can try on sieges is you can burn the gate down really quick sometimes. And sometimes you can catch the AI trying to move the army into position. So like if you burn it down so fast that they're actually not even at the gate ready to go. And what you do is you just get right up here at the gate. So you let them bust it down, then you come running through. And this is a great castle because you see I'm not going to have rocks falling over my head. But look, you can really chop this thing down crazy fast. And sometimes the enemy army isn't even in position yet. They're on their way. Or here it is. See, here they come. And you just want to push it back as much as you can. And so then you get a real nice start on that kind of back and forth that takes place here. Maybe get you a nice corner here to work an angle. And then you just get to chopping dudes, chopping shields. Whatever's in front of you, just chop it, kill it. Another trick that can be rather fun in a Sturgia playthrough, especially if you've got a ton of axemen like I like to build. And this tactic is especially effective on these level 1 walls, like there's a low-level castle or town you need to take. Just bring them up within throwing range and let them sprinkle a little bit of that Sturgia seasoning on them before you go storming up the ladders. You'll see we had a few brave ones up there. They shall rest in Valhalla. But we're just going to throw all these axes and really soften them up before we go storming up the ladders, because the ladders get a little brutal. They're a little less brutal with all these axes flowing. That's sometimes a fun way to soften up the defense before you go climbing into it. We'll do one last battle with my own private army now. Got my own Nordic kingdom going. And these Valandians are coming to invade my territory, and I caught them out here on these beautiful plains. Now here you go again with that range coming at us, and it just does not freaking matter. We're going to get in range to throw our axes and soften them up. I'm going to go ahead and send the cavalry in on their cavalry on the flank, because my cavalry should wreck them just because they're just way more elite at this point. You can see how many elite troops I have in my army. Let's just let the axes fly and give them some time. There's no reason to be in a hurry. Remember, the first part of a battle is when the most heavily armored units are out. At least that's how I have mine set up. Because I really feel like this initial conflict kind of determines the rest of the battle. Admittedly, the AI isn't so great with them, but it's good enough to have some fun, and that's what matters. And you can see we made short work of the Valandian cavalry. And so now that we're crashing into the back of them, let's also crash into the front of them. And this is that main Sturgia tactic that I'm trying to tell you, okay? Locate, close with, and destroy. That's the goal. Where the hell are they? Get your shields up. We're going right at them. And that's what you want to do. And these axemen are just going to melt everything. Look at them. Churning up that Valandian army. No problem. This is a good time to point out why I don't like to do just infantry. You see all this infantry sitting back here that really can't get in a fight? You can spread your formation out and help kind of more of these guys be able to get in. But at some point, there's just a certain amount of infantry that are not in the fight. Sometimes you can split them up into different groups and do things like that too. That can help with kind of them all bunching up. But it does happen. One thing to be aware of on these big fights too is that your cavalry's going to be out there running around, tearing it up. Your soldiers are going to get kind of spaced out, and the infantry's reinforcements are just going to keep coming at you while you keep running at them. So sometimes it's better to stop, force the enemy to kind of regroup. And then once they've regrouped, now we're going back at it. It's always fun to come in here and harvest with the boys. And look at y'all, huh? Look at y'all, covered in the red blood of our enemies. And then now, we just submit our fate to the gods, and we're just going to come in here and harvest our asses off. Level up that two-hander. Is there anything more awesome than the two-handed axe from horseback in all of video gaming? I don't think so. This thing is incredible, and you just feel like such a badass. You got to be real careful. But, you know, at this stage with this low-level shit, it doesn't hit nearly as hard. There's not nearly as many crossbow bolts rolling around. And in the end, all fall before Sturgia's might. Just a brutal, badass faction with a lot of synergy between its units. Just a ton of ways to play a Sturgia campaign. And no matter which one you choose, they're all going to be fun. If you're looking for some blood for the blood gods or skulls for the skull throne, go ahead and pick you up some lads from Sturgia. That's just what they do. Vocal Home out.